The first time he pulled her hair, the world did not stop. The monitors kept beeping. The fluorescent lights kept buzzing. Somewhere down the hall, a child cried for her mother. But for Amina Okoye, time shattered into something sharp and breathless. Dr. Han Jun-suk's fingers were buried deep in her thick braids, twisted tight at the crown of her head. The pain wasn't sudden. It was slow, deliberate, humiliating. He didn't yank her because he'd lost control. He pulled her because he wanted her to feel small. Her back hit the cold metal cabinet inside the emergency supply room. Stainless steel trays rattled. The smell of antiseptic burned her nose. She tasted copper where she'd bitten inside of her cheek to stop herself from crying out. "You embarrass me," he said quietly, his voice calm, almost clinical. Outside the half-closed door, the ER roared with chaos. Inside, it was just him and her, and the unbearable weight of silence. Amina was tired, not the kind of tired sleep could fix, the kind that settled in your bones when you worked 16-hour shifts, sent money home to Lagos every month, smiled through microaggressions, and pretended not to notice how patients sometimes asked for another nurse when they saw her dark skin. She was tired of swallowing everything, but she still said, steady and low, "I saved the patient." That was what had triggered him. The trauma case had come in with internal bleeding after a car accident in Gangnam. Dr. Han had ordered one medication. Amina had seen the labs. She had known it was wrong. She had corrected him, in front of everyone. He hadn't argued. He'd simply stared at her. And now he was making sure she understood her place. "You are here because this hospital allows you to be here," he whispered, tightening his grip. "Don't confuse competence with authority." She closed her eyes. If she lost this job, her younger brother's university tuition would vanish, her mother's blood pressure medication, the rent back home. So she didn't fight him. Not yet. But she did not beg either. That was when the door clicked. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough. Dr. Han's hand loosened. Amina felt it before she saw them. A shift in the air, in power. 3 men stood in the hallway outside the supply room. Black suits tailored to perfection. Expressions carved from stone. And between them, Kong Min-jae, the youngest son of the Kong family. Even Amina, who tried to avoid gossip, knew that name. The Kong group officially ran shipping, medical investments, tech firms. Unofficially, they were something far older than corporate power. Whispers followed them. Control, debt, violence. The Korean Mafia. Min-jae's eyes were dark and unreadable as they moved from Dr. Han's hand to Amina's scalp to the faint tremor in her shoulders. He didn't raise his voice. "Doctor," he said smoothly, "what exactly are you doing?" Dr. Han released her as it burned. "Mr. Kong, this is a misunderstanding." Amina straightened slowly, refusing to touch her hair, refusing to show weakness. Min-jae stepped closer. Up close. He was younger than she expected. Late 20s. Sharp jaw. Controlled posture. Expensive watch glinting under hospital lights. But his eyes, they were furious. "Did he hurt you?" he asked her directly. No one ever asked her that. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. If she said no, this would disappear. If she said yes. She didn't know what men like Kong Min-jae did to people who crossed them, but she did know one thing. "I saved your brother," she said quietly, "and he punished me for it." Silence fell like a blade. Dr. Han's face drained of color. Min-jae didn't look at the surgeon. He looked only at Amina. "Answer my question," he said gently. She held his gaze. "Yes." It was barely louder than a breath. That was enough. One of the suited men stepped forward and seized Dr. Han by the collar. "Wait, Mr. Kong, this is absurd." His voice faded as he was dragged down the hallway. No one intervened. No one dared. Min-jae remained where he was. He studied her for a long moment. Not her uniform. Not her badge. Her. "You're exhausted," he said. She almost laughed. 16 hours, she replied. "And you still stood your ground." Amina didn't understand why that sounded like admiration. "I did my job," she said. His jaw tightened. And he forgot his. Min Jae hadn't planned to visit the hospital that night. His older brother, Kang Dae-hyun, had been brought in after a violent altercation at a private club. Stab wound, internal bleeding, discretion required. The Kang family owned a portion of the hospital shares that ensured silence, but it had been Amina who stayed at Dae-hyun's bedside through the night. Amina, who caught the internal hemorrhage early. Amina, who ignored the murmurs about foreign staff and focused only on the patient. She hadn't known who he was. She had treated him like any other life worth saving. Min Jae had watched from the shadows that night. He remembered the steadiness of her hands, the softness in her voice when she adjusted 4 lines, the way she refused to panic. He remembered everything, and he had also seen the way Dr. Han watched her, not with respect, with resentment. Now, seeing the red mark at her scalp, something cold moved through him. "We repay our debts," Min Jae said quietly. "I wasn't asking for repayment." His lips almost curved. "Good, because I don't offer charity." Dr. Han never returned to work. Official statement: voluntary resignation. Internal rumor: misconduct. Unofficial truth: the Kang family erased him. Not dead, but finished. Medical license suspended. Investors withdrawn. Reputation dismantled piece by piece. Power didn't always shout. Sometimes it simply closed doors. 2 days later, Amina was called into administration. She expected trouble. Instead, she was handed a new contract. Higher salary, reduced hours, direct reporting to hospital administration instead of department head. Signed personally by Kang Min Jae. Her hands trembled slightly as she read it. "I didn't ask for this," she told the HR director. "You didn't have to." She saw him again a week later. Not in the hallway, not in chaos, but in the hospital rooftop garden, where staff sometimes went for 5 stolen minutes of quiet. She was leaning against a railing, eyes closed, breathing in cold autumn air. "I was wondering when you'd notice I keep coming here at the same time." She startled, then turned. Min Jae stood a few feet away, no bodyguards visible. "You're hard to miss," she said carefully. "Because of my reputation? Because 3 men usually walk 5 steps behind you." That almost earned a smile. Not today. He approached the railing, standing beside her but not touching. "Are you afraid of me?" he asked. She considered lying. "Yes." He nodded once. "That's reasonable." Silence stretched. Below them, Seoul glittered in early evening light. "You didn't have to ruin his career," she said suddenly. Min Jae's expression shifted, just slightly. "I didn't ruin it," he replied. "He did. I simply removed the protection he believed he had." "And what about yours?" "My protection? You think no one will ever remove yours?" A slow exhale. "Everyone's protection gets removed eventually." There was something almost human in the way he said it, almost lonely. Over the next weeks, he appeared often, not hovering, not demanding, just present, sometimes bringing coffee, sometimes asking about her family in Nigeria, sometimes standing in silence while she complained about the broken vending machine. It unsettled her. Men like him did nothing without reason. "Why me?" she asked one night. He didn't pretend not to understand. "You stood in front of me and told the truth," he said. "Most people don't. That's a low standard." "Not in my world." She studied him under the rooftop lights. "And what world is that?" He looked out over the city. "The kind where loyalty is currency and betrayal is fatal." A chill ran through her. "You're not afraid I'll betray you?" He turned slowly. "No," he said softly. "I'm afraid someone will hurt you to get to me." The air shifted. Dangerous. Intimate. "You barely know me," she whispered. "I know enough." His gaze dropped briefly to her hair, now neatly braided again. "Has anyone touched you without permission since that night?" Her throat tightened. "No." "Good." Something dark flickered behind his calm. "And if they do," he added quietly, "they won't do it twice." Amina told herself to stay away. She told herself men like Kang Min Jae did not fall in love. They acquired. They possessed. They protected for a reason. But exhaustion has a way of lowering walls. And loneliness is louder in foreign cities. The night it truly shifted. Rain poured over Seoul in silver sheets. The ER flooded with accident victims. Amina worked like she always did, focused, relentless. At 3:17 a.m., the doors burst open again. Not paramedics this time. Gunshot wound. Male, late 20s. Familiar face. Min Jae, blood soaked through his shirt, dark and spreading. Her heart stopped. Move, she barked at the stunned staff. She pressed her hands against the wound. You're not dying, she said fiercely. His eyes found hers through the haze of pain. I had a feeling you'd be on shift. Shut up. He almost smiled. Surgery lasted 2 hours. She wasn't allowed inside. She waited anyway. When the surgeon emerged, different department, different head, he nodded. He'll live. Her knees nearly gave out. He woke to find her asleep in the chair beside his bed, hair loose, face pale with exhaustion. Min Jae watched her quietly. For the first time in years, something inside him felt unguarded. When she stirred, she caught him staring. You idiot, she whispered. You're welcome, he murmured. For what? For giving you job security. She glared, then unexpectedly, her hand closed around his. Not professional, not distant, warm. Don't do that again, she said. He didn't ask what she meant. He understood. But the calm world was not gentle. Rival factions whispered. Enemies watched. And it didn't take long before someone noticed the African nurse, who had the youngest Kong heir's attention. The first threat came as flowers. Beautiful. White lilies. Card attached. We see you. Min Jae's jaw hardened when he saw it. I can handle myself, Amina insisted. I know, he said quietly. That's not what worries me. What does? That you shouldn't have to. She stepped closer. I don't want protection. That cages me. His voice softened. Then stand beside me. Not behind. The weight of that invitation settled between them. To stand beside Kong Min Jae was to enter a storm. But she had already survived worse. She reached up slowly. This time, when she touched his hair, it was gentle, intentional. A choice. Then don't ever pull mine again, she said softly. A flicker of understanding crossed his face. I never did, he replied. She studied him and believed him, because sometimes the man who watches in silence is not the one who harms you, but the one who decides. No one else ever will. The lilies were still on the kitchen table when the second message arrived. This one wasn't delicate. It was deliberate. Amina stepped out of her apartment building at 6 a.m, scrubs folded inside her bag, hair wrapped in a silk scarf against the cold Seoul air. She almost didn't notice the black sedan parked across the street. Almost. The engine wasn't running. The windows were tinted. But the feeling of being watched crawled up her spine like ice water. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Silence. Then a man's voice, distorted and calm. Pretty nurse. Her stomach dropped. You work very hard. She didn't speak. You should be careful who you stand beside. The call ended. The sedan drove off. Amina stood frozen on the sidewalk, pulse hammering. She had grown up in Lagos. She knew fear. She knew danger. But this was targeted, intentional, and she knew exactly why. Min Jae arrived at her apartment 20 minutes later. She hadn't called him. She didn't need to. When she opened the door, he was already furious. Why didn't you tell me about the car last night? He demanded. Her eyes narrowed. You're watching my building? Yes. That's not comforting. It's not meant to be. He stepped inside without waiting for permission, scanning the room as if danger might be hiding behind her couch. You got a call, he said. Not a question. She crossed her arms. How do you know that? Because my security flagged an unknown signal pinging your number for 30 seconds. Her breath caught. You monitor my phone? I monitor threats. That's not the same thing. It is in my world. She stared at him. This isn't your world. she said sharply. It's mine. My job. My apartment. My life. And they're using it to get to me. Silence. The truth hung heavy between them. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. This is my fault. Amina swallowed. No, she said quietly. It's not. I chose to stand beside you. His eyes darkened. And now you're paying for it. The Kong family compound did not look like a fortress. From the outside, it resembled a luxurious private estate on the outskirts of Seoul. Sleek architecture, manicured gardens, guarded gates. Inside, it was a different story. Amina had never intended to step foot there. But after the call, Min-jae insisted. Temporary, he said, until I resolve this. She didn't like the word resolve. It sounded permanent. As the gates closed behind the car, she felt something shift. This wasn't a hospital hallway anymore. This was his territory. Guards bowed slightly as he passed. Staff moved with quiet efficiency. No one questioned why an African nurse, in simple clothes, walked beside the youngest Kong heir. But they noticed. Everyone noticed. Your family won't like this, she murmured. They don't have to. That answer told her more than he realized. She met Kong Dae-hyun that evening, the older brother she had saved. He was taller than Min-jae, broader, with a scar that cut through his eyebrow and down his cheek. His presence was heavier, more dangerous. He studied her over a glass of whiskey. So, you're the nurse, he said. I have a name. One brow lifted. Min-jae almost smiled. Dae-hyun leaned back. You understand what being here means? I'm starting to. And you're not afraid? She met his gaze steadily. I am, but fear doesn't control me. A slow nod. You're different from the women who usually walk through these doors. I'm not walking through them for power. Dae-hyun's eyes flicked to his brother. Be careful, he said quietly. The ones who don't want power are the hardest to protect. Protection came in layers. Guards at the gates. Surveillance around the hospital. A driver assigned to her shifts. It felt suffocating. Do you think I'm fragile? She snapped at Min-jae one night. No. Then stop treating me like glass. He stepped closer. I treat you like someone they will break to hurt me. The honesty stunned her. You think I'm your weakness. I think you're my only one. The words settled between them, heavy and raw. She had not expected vulnerability from a man raised in shadows. But there it was, and it terrified her more than the threats. The attack didn't come at night. It came in daylight, crowded, public. Amina was leaving the hospital after a grueling shift when a man stumbled toward her in the parking garage. At first, she thought he was drunk. Then she saw the knife. Time slowed. Her body reacted before her mind did. She stepped back, raising her bag as a shield. The blade slashed through fabric, grazing her arm. Pain flared hot and immediate. Security shouted. The man lunged again, but he never reached her. Two of Min-jae's men tackled him to the ground. The knife clattered across concrete. Amina stood frozen, blood trickling down her sleeve. When Min-jae arrived, his face was no longer calm. It was lethal. He didn't ask if she was okay. He looked at the blood, and something inside him snapped. The man who attacked her disappeared. Officially, he was arrested. Unofficially, no one saw him again. Amina confronted Min-jae that night. You said you'd resolve it, she said. I did. How? He didn't answer. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with anger. I won't be the reason someone dies. His jaw tightened. In my world, mercy invites more attacks. This isn't war. It is for us. She stepped back as if struck. For us? He closed the distance again. You think they targeted you randomly? They chose you because they know I care. The word hung in the air. Care. Not love. Not yet, but close enough to burn. I didn't ask you to care, she whispered. I know. And you don't get to decide who lives or dies because of me. His eyes flashed. You think I enjoy it? I think you're used to it. Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. For the first time, she saw the fracture in him. Not the Mafia heir. Not the controlled strategist. Just a man raised to believe violence was language. My father taught me, he said quietly, that hesitation is weakness. Weakness gets people buried. And what do you believe? She asked. He didn't answer immediately. I believe, he said slowly, that I don't want you buried. Her anger softened, but the line between them remained. That night, she couldn't sleep. The compound was too quiet, too protected. She stepped onto the balcony, cool air brushing her skin. Min Jae joined her minutes later. You're bleeding through the bandage, he said. I've had worse. He reached for her arm gently. This time, when he touched her hair, it wasn't control. It was to move a curl away from her face. Soft, reverent. I would burn this city down, he murmured, if it meant you'd never be afraid again. She looked at him sharply. That's exactly what scares me. He studied her. You don't want a man like me. I don't want a man who solves everything with destruction. And if destruction is the only thing my enemies understand, she stepped closer. Then teach them something new. His breath caught. You think I can change? I think you already are. Days passed without incident. Too quiet. Min Jae grew more restless. She noticed. You're waiting for something, she said. Yes. What? For the move that actually matters. It came sooner than expected. A call from Daehyun. Short, urgent. The rival faction wasn't just sending threats. They were preparing to challenge the Kong family's control over a major shipping route. And they believed Min Jae's distraction made him vulnerable. Amina watched him process the information. Cold, focused, deadly. You're going, she said. I have to. She nodded once. Then come back. His gaze softened. That's all. What else is there? He stepped close, forehead almost touching hers. If I don't, she cut in sharply. Don't say that. For the first time since she met him, he hesitated. Then he did something unexpected. He knelt slightly in front of her, not submissive, but intentional, and pressed his forehead against her stomach, as if grounding himself. Stay safe, he whispered. She ran her fingers through his hair. Not pulled, not claimed. Chosen. Always. When he left, the compound fell hollow. Amina returned to the hospital. She refused to be hidden. Whispers followed her now, not about her skin, but about her connection. Some feared her. Some resented her. She ignored them all, because she understood something now. Power wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was endurance. 3 nights later, gunfire echoed across the river district. News reported gang-related violence. No names mentioned, but she knew. Her phone remained silent for hours. Each minute stretched unbearable. Then, a message. One word. Alive. She exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. When he returned, there was a new scar along his shoulder. He looked older, harder, but when he saw her, the hardness cracked. She walked toward him slowly. You're bleeding again, she said. He almost laughed. It's becoming a habit. She reached up, fingers brushing the edge of the bandage. Don't make me save you every month. His hand covered hers. If I keep getting shot, it's only so you'll keep touching me like that. Her lips parted. That's manipulative. It's effective. For a moment, the world outside the compound didn't exist. No rivals. No threats. Just 2 people who had stepped into something dangerous and didn't regret it. I don't belong to your world, she said softly. He shook his head. No, you don't. Then where do I belong? His thumb traced the inside of her wrist, pulse steady beneath his touch. Wherever you decide to stand. She searched his eyes. And if I decide to stand with you? His voice dropped to something almost sacred. Then I won't let anyone pull your hair again. A breath of silence. Then she leaned in and kissed him. Not soft, not hesitant, but fierce. Because love in their world would never be gentle. And somewhere in the shadows of Seoul, enemies were still watching. But this time, they weren't looking at a tired African nurse. They were looking at the woman who had become the only thing Kong Min-jae feared losing. And that made her the most powerful person in the room.